Welcome back to Rudy's 1/6 World for episode 9 of our new figure showcase series, where I'll be doing a quick review / posing session with the newest addition to my collection. And today, I was able to finally unbox the Patriot from Toys Era, which, as we all know, is a third-party, unlicensed version of the John Walker version of Captain America as he appeared in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show. Now, before we jump into the figure, I do have to say I was pretty surprised that Hot Toys did not make a version of this character. After all, besides Iron Man and Spider-Man, Captain America is, I think, one of the characters that Hot Toys has most often created different versions of. So I had assumed this was going to be an easy one for Hot Toys to tackle. But for whatever reason, they chose not to pursue this character, and as a result, Toys Era stepped in to fill the void. Now, when the original promo shots came out, I have to admit I thought it looked okay, but there were a lot of things that were clearly wrong with the figure. And there were things I overlooked and I thought I could live with. So consider me surprised to find that the figure actually turned out a lot better than I was expecting. So first thing to mention here, as we look at the figure and everything he comes with, is that the figure feels really good in hand. It feels like it's a decent quality, along with the material that Toys Era used for the suit. So jumping into the figure, he comes with a few accessories, including a rectangular stand, which is a nice addition given some of my complaints for other figures lacking bases, especially if you do want to try to get a dynamic pose going. And let's start looking at the other accessories with his shield, which is a decent recreation of what we saw in the show. I also do like that the silver portions of the shield have a texture to them, so it definitely makes a difference. Color applications on the shield are good overall, although not up to the standards we've seen with the Hot Toys versions, which is to be expected. On the flip side, as you look at the back side of the shield, it's a standard silver with the leather straps to go around his forearm and for him to grip. Only real nitpick here is that I wish the back of the shield had included John's Medals of Honor, which he welds onto the shield at the end of the show. Second nitpick, one of the most iconic scenes in the show involved John Walker killing someone with the shield, and the image of him holding the blood-splattered shield was one of the biggest moments, I think, in the show. So I think it would have been easy for Toys Era to provide a second shield with the blood splatter. Next, we get his gun, which is one of the pieces that sets him apart from Steve Rogers as well. This one, though, is definitely an issue here. First of all, it's completely different from what we saw in the promo pics they had showed us, and it's actually, I think, the gun that they previewed with their Zemo figure, and just like in the Zemo preview, I think it looks pretty bad here. I think it's their attempt at a Desert Eagle, and it just isn't assembled well, and it looks really toyish. It's also not screen accurate. On the show, he uses an STI Perfect 10, which is a pretty unique firearm, so I guess I can understand why Toys Era didn't provide that, as it's not something very common and they might have had to create a specific mold for it. But unfortunately, what we're getting here is not great. Honestly, it's not even an accurate Desert Eagle other than the front of the gun, so that's going to be a piece I'll try to swap out at some point down the line. He also does come with a set of interchangeable hands, which look decent enough, but again, lack some of the detailing we've become accustomed to with Hot Toys and even with Damn Toys. But still, nice variety to give us some good posing options. Final accessory is the alternate unmasked head sculpt. So let's start with the likeness. I mean, it's clear it's not there. I feel like if you squint hard enough, it kind of looks like Wyatt Russell, but it's not the best sculpt we've ever seen. Having said that, I do have to give Toys Era props for the sculpt work itself. The paint applications, the texturing, they're all really well done here. And the eyes are a big plus. That's one of the things that I always feel either elevates the figure or detracts from it. If it's done well, it's great, and if it's done poorly, it just takes you away from that illusion of realism with 6 scale. So here, credit to Toys Era for doing a decent job overall. So now let's take a look at the figure itself and start with the sculpted head. Now, this is one big improvement from the promo pics. In those pictures, the helmet was a brighter shade of blue that didn't match the uniform, and Toys Era was able to correct that for the final version, so huge improvement. As for the sculpt, it's pretty screen accurate, I think, with the updated Captain America symbol on his forehead, the color scheme, and the proper chin guard. His eyes, again, on this sculpt look good, although the paint apps where the helmet meet the face could be better. As far as the suit, I think the material choice here, like I said before, was excellent. There's a great texture to the paneling, and overall it's close to what we saw in the show. The A on the left side of his chest is pretty accurate, and so is the collar seam, if you look back at the screenshots from the show. The pattern along his chest is accurate in terms of the placement of the red bands along with the silver buckles. Belt is also pretty accurate, as are the red panels on the side of his abdomen. I'll leave the arms for later because there are things that are inaccurate there. But looking at the pants, again, great stitch work here, and I think it's a good recreation of what we saw in the show, including his drop-down thigh holster for the gun. The knee pads and the boots look good, but here's the one thing they got wrong. If you look at the suit on the show, the area on the inner side of the knee pads should actually be a red material. Here, Toys R Us just made the pants a solid blue. Back of the figure looks pretty good as well with the Captain America A on his back, and again, decent pattern overall. Now, one thing you can see here is another incorrect part of the design, which is the red on the upper back should continue through to the arms. Here, there's a clear discontinuity, and the same actually applies for the top red band across his chest. It should continue onto the red in his arms, but Toys R Us didn't do that. Now, looking at the profile shots, and this is a comment that's going to apply to both sides of the figure, the shoulder guard is wrong. Toys R Us has it as a separate piece, almost like a piece of independent armor, while in the show it was actually a panel on the suit, and the red along the arm actually wasn't hidden by the armor. The other thing wrong here is the US flag. First thing, Toys R Us just made it fully silver, which isn't screen accurate at all. Second, the direction of the flag is wrong. If you look at the screenshots, the flag should be reversed with the stripes facing towards his back. And I think that's pretty typical of how the flag looks on military uniforms. So it's something that they got wrong on both sides. They tried, but listen, it's little things here and there that just aren't right. Finally, I think the biggest issue I have overall is the red that they chose. In the show, the red is actually a little more vibrant, and Toys R Us for some reason opted to go with a more muted version of the color, except for the panels on his abdomen. Not sure why they did that, but it's another inconsistency and also maybe another nitpick, you might think. There's the other issue here is there's no way to attach the shield to his back, so you have to have him either holding the shield along the arm or just not holding it at all. Now, on the plus side, it does look like he would actually belong with some Hot Toys figures. And I do have some shots comparing him to the Age of Ultron cap by Hot Toys. And this is to their credit, although I don't know if they did this on purpose, but the scale on the figures is pretty nice. The Steve Rogers is taller than John Walker, and also the Steve Rogers figure is bulkier, which kind of makes sense. And I think looking at John next to Steve, he looks more lean, which I think was also something that was accurate to the show. You know, he wasn't a super soldier, at least not at first, and you can see the difference in the figures. So now, as we look at some poses, I do have to say overall, I really like this figure. It's not the best overall that we've gotten from any company, but I do think it's one of the best figures we've gotten from Toys R Us. And I do think the material selection they had here is superior to everything they've done before. Sometimes we've seen that like rubbery suit that they've had, which can be an issue, and sometimes you wonder about longevity. Here, they completely did away with that and actually did a tailored suit, which works nicely. It's also not as restrictive as you might think at first. And for example, his arms do have a double jointed elbow, and you can actually achieve some pretty good poses with that. And he also does hold the shield fairly well, although to be honest, as opposed to the Hot Toys versions, the straps here for him to grip and to go around his forearm are a little bit oversized. It's not a deal breaker, but just something to be aware of. And I think that's really where I land with this figure. I knew going in it wasn't going to be Hot Toys, but I think overall, Toys R Us produced a figure that was improved upon over what we saw originally, and I think it actually came out really good. I thought John Walker looked a little goofy in the suit on the show, especially when he was wearing the helmet. And honestly, I feel like that actually helped the figure, and the figure was able to recreate that because he does look a little strange with the helmet. Beyond that, and beyond the gun, which is the only major fail here, I think he looks good next to my other MCU figures. And I feel like he's going to look great with Sam Wilson's cap and the Zemo that apparently should be shipping out shortly. So, while not a perfect figure, I think Toys R Us did a really good job here, and I think this will definitely fill the gap in the collection. Now, John Walker is returning to the MCU in his US agent persona for Thunderbolts, so I'm almost 100% certain Hot Toys will tackle him at some point in time. But not sure they'll ever go back to do this version of the character, although I could be wrong. But for now, I'm really happy with him, and if you are thinking of picking him up, I don't think you can go wrong. There's definitely a lot to like here, and the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. And one other positive, which is something worth noting, he can actually hold some really great poses and has some good ankle joints, which are pretty sturdy and pretty stable overall. So that's a huge plus. So that's it for this review. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Is this a decent pickup and attempt for a third-party company? Are you planning on getting him, or are you planning more on waiting for Thunderbolts to get that official licensed John Walker? I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and if you are enjoying the content and feel so inclined, please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. And I do have to say, I thank you, and I do appreciate all of you who have already subscribed and watched these videos. With that said, we'll touch base on the next video.